protect yourself from spiritual abuse, you must be able to detect a spiritually abusive leader. And in this video, I'm going to go over some of the traits of spiritually abusive leaders that you need to be on the lookout for so that you don't go through spiritual abuse again. My name is Dr. Felicia. I'm a licensed psychologist, and my YouTube channel focuses on the detection, prevention, and recovery from spiritual abuse. So, on to the topic at hand, spiritually abusive leaders. When you think about how to detect a spiritually abusive leader, it might seem really overwhelming. And that's because spiritually abusive leaders don't announce that they are spiritually abusive, right? When they are out there controlling people and manipulating people, in order for them to be able to do so, they have to hide. They have to hide certain traits. And so, one of the things that you need to be on the lookout for is what I just talked about, right? That controlling and manipulative tendencies, and the tendency in a leader to control others. And one way that you can detect that is how they act in public versus how they act in private. And the reason why this is really important is that if you see a distinct difference between the way a leader acts when they are in front of a group versus when they're speaking with you or interacting with you privately, if you notice a big difference, that can be a key that they are putting on a mask and they're really not being their true selves, perhaps in either environment. So it's really important to pay attention to that. A lot of you have talked about this in the comment section and in the live videos that I've done, that you were under spiritually abusive leadership and you didn't notice it at first, and one of the first things that tipped you off was a private interaction that you had with that leader. Another way that you can tell that a leader may be spiritually abusive is look at how reactive they are emotionally. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying we all have times where we might be more sensitive, we may be more emotionally reactive, right? So I'm not saying that if someone has mood swings, or if they react, or in a touchy way, that automatically means they're spiritually abusive. What I am saying, though, is that a big red flag is seeing a leader who tends to go through very dramatic mood swings. They could be very happy one moment, and then they could be, yelling at somebody else another moment, right? You want to look for that level of emotional reactivity, right? Do they seem to just be all over the place with their emotions? And the reason why that's important is this is actually a control tactic that abusive people use. When they are happy one minute and then very angry the next minute, or they act comforting in one situation and then they act like maybe predatorially or in an attacking manner in the next situation, it keeps people on their toes around this person. And it makes them, number one, fear them because they don't know what's coming up next, right? When somebody is unpredictable with their moods and they're prone to outbursts and, extreme mood swings, it keeps everybody on edge. And when you are kept on edge, then you are more likely to react out of fear and maybe not do something that you would do if you were reacting out of a place of calmness and of objectivity. And also when leaders behave this way, it makes everybody around them want to be on their good side. So they might pacify them. They might, try to maybe hide things from them or sugarcoat things so that they don't risk offending them. And so that's another way of manipulation and control. If you're a leader, you want the people that you're leading to feel comfortable with telling you the truth and maybe telling you things that they are concerned about, or even, traits that they maybe see in you or the spiritual environment that give them concern, right? And so dealing with somebody who is so emotionally reactive makes it difficult to communicate with them. Another thing that you will see, I'm just looking at my notes here. Another way that you can tell a leader could be spiritually abusive is how they go about communicating. Many times, people who are abusive and manipulative have indirect and passive aggressive ways of communication. instead of coming out and asking for what they want, they will manipulate or try to guilt you into getting what they want. Or they might, if they are upset with you about something, instead of coming to you directly and saying, hey, I'm upset about this, they will create a whole sermon and call you on it, and they won't use your name. And I have a video about this, and a lot of you in the comment section have talked about how you had been publicly humiliated in a spiritually abusive setting, right? So it might have been through a sermon or a speech or whatever, and you knew that you were being talked about, even though your name was not used. And so this shows spiritual abuse because the individual that's doing this is trying to, number one, get ahead of the story. And they also want to get like the last word in, right? And so maybe there has been an ongoing conflict, and then they talk about it in front of the, congregation or environment or whatever, and they, spin their own version of the story. And so you really want to be careful about that. A good and healthy leader will be able to communicate with you directly. They're not going to go around and use all this passive aggressive stuff to communicate. And another thing too, along those lines, is that people who are spiritually abusive manipulate the environment. And what I mean by that is that they can do something sort of egregious in front of a lot of people to you. And the reason they'll do that is because once that happens in a public setting, you might feel less comfortable confronting them about it. So they might say something kind of rude to you and say, oh, I was just kidding. And they say it in front of a lot of people, and you perceive it as hurtful. And it probably, depending on what was said, it could be a very hurtful or mean comment. But by them saying it in front of people and saying they're kidding, it kind of gives them a buffer, right? And so they can, it decreases the risk of being confronted. At the same time, they may act, you might meet with them privately, and they may act very differently from how they are in public, even saying different things, right? So they might tell you one thing, maybe a version of something that happened privately, and then publicly they say maybe the opposite of what happened. And again, these things destabilize people because when you start wondering, okay, did I hear this correctly? Like, I thought I just sat in this meeting with this person and they said X, Y, and Z, and now they're saying ABC. When you start to doubt yourself a lot, you are less likely to take action and to call out certain behaviors that are harmful. Okay. Another thing that I've noticed about spiritually abusive leaders is they're very concerned about appearance. So when I say appearance, it's not so much physical appearance, but they want to appear a certain way. They're very vested in a particular image. Many of you might hear, many of you actually have shared that when you've been in these environments, they'll say things like, oh, we're all a family. And the leader will say that not only are they a family, they might try to put themselves in the place of a parent and require certain things from you, of course, indirectly in a passive aggressive way, but that appearance to them is very important. And so they probably, they likely have an image of what they believe that they should be, and they will craft everything to maintain that image. And so you'll hear things like, oh, we're a family, right? And that creates this image of being supportive and intimate and whatnot. But a lot of times that can be used to manipulate other people. So I definitely watch out for that. And sometimes spiritually abusive leaders are also very focused on niceness versus authenticity. So you'll see and hear a lot of rhetoric around, oh, be nice, be nice. That wasn't nice. And that is also a way of controlling people, right? If you have a criticism of something, you don't like something, you have a concern, the way they're going to shut you down is by saying, well, that's not nice. And that's something else you need to be on the lookout for. Anytime you are dealing with a leader who wants to sweep things under the rug and really they're very vested in this picture perfect image, that is a big red flag you need to be aware of. Another thing that is that can be really concerning is how they explain a tough situation in their lives or how they deal with challenges and adversities. Sometimes a spiritually abusive leader will make themselves both the hero and the victim in a situation. And let me give you an example. So maybe something came out about that congregation or that spiritually abusive setting, right? Maybe some bad news came out. There was something in the press or whatever. And so they will spin that as people are against me. No one supports me. And so it's kind of like this poor me victimhood sort of thing. And then at the same token, they will also make themselves the hero by saying that, well, I could, fight back or do X, Y, and Z, but I'm sticking by you guys and whatever. So it kind of creates this sympathy that, yes, they're the victim, but also they're the hero that is still staying in this environment and taking care of everyone. So think about how they spin or portray something negative, either something that's negative that has been said about them, negative news that's come out, or any kind of like challenge and adversity. And again, you have to be able to think in nuance for this because there are times where we go through challenges and we can feel victimized and also feel like we have kind of conquered or gotten over that situation. And I guess be, for lack of a better word, a hero. But spiritually abusive leaders do this in a way that's very manipulative, and they do this to shield themselves from criticism, and they also do this as a way of controlling and manipulating people around them. So you want to look out for that narrative. And then another something that is a big red flag for me is how, pay attention to how a spiritual leader asks things of people. Somebody who's a healthy leader will be pretty direct about what they want. And they'll say, are you willing to do this? If you say no, they're fine with it because they understand that they're not here to, use their will to dominate other people. But a spiritually abusive leader is not going to go that route. And if they, instead of, asking you to do something, saying, would you like to do this or whatnot, they will or either outright order you to do it and say, okay, I need you to do this, 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 and that. Or they might ask in a manipulative way. So think about it. If somebody, let's say you're in a group of people and you are asked in public by this leader to do something, it's going to be harder for you to say no, right? What if they say, oh, we have this family from out of town visiting, and oh, you were there, I know would it be too much for us to ask you to host them for a week, right? And so if you are in front of all these people, you might find it difficult to say, well, I need to think about it or not. A healthy leader would take you aside and ask you that, and give you time to think about what you want to do. Another thing that as an abusive leader can do is like order you to do things, right? Also in front of other people. And so that is a way of manipulating you to get what they want. Okay, so these are just some traits of spiritually abusive leaders. There are a lot more that I can go into, but these are the ones I feel are important for you to look out for. And again, that's why, we talk about this a lot on this channel, that when you are vetting an environment, when you're going into a new spiritual place, you have to take time to look for these signs. Abusive people and abusive environments don't announce themselves as such. They're going to seem friendly, they're going to seem nice, they're going to seem to, have what you are looking for. And so that's why you need to take things slowly, allow things to unfold and develop. So I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. What other, traits or behaviors do you feel are associated with spiritually abusive leaders? To book a free consultation, go to my website, skillsetcounseling.com, and click on the orange button. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful day that's full of peace. Bye-bye.